Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Afri live stream, the virtual Famine Walk. If you don't mind just bearing with us for a few moments, I have Joe Murray and some wonderful guests waiting in the background for a wonderful hour and a half that we're going to be together tonight. I'm Ruairí McKiernan, and it's an absolute pleasure to host this event this evening, a rather unusual event. I see people joining in from all over, and it's great to see some names that I recognize, some new people as well. So to get us started, if you wouldn't mind, some people are logged in on Facebook, on my own Facebook, on the Afri Facebook, Afri's YouTube account. What you could do, which would be really nice, is to share a little bit about where you are beaming in from, what county, what country. And also, we welcome any memories of your experiences of the Famine Walk over the years. We welcome any questions you have for the guests over the night. We'll do our best to get to everybody as we can. It's a technical feat to try and bring everybody together. Obviously, we are all in this situation where we're confined and restricted in many different ways. But we're going to do our best tonight to make this as seamless and effortless as possible. I'm going to start off by just showing you a couple of clips from a little reflecting video that Afri friend Raj Whelan put together. It's just a nice little kind of reflection piece.
Over the 13 walks, we walked with people from East Timor, South Africa, the Mayo from Guatemala, the Choctaw from Oklahoma, and many other people in struggle. That's what this walk is about.
Today, the coffin ships are back. They cross the Mediterranean Sea every day.
Their lake and plain smile fair and free. Mid rocks their guardian.
On the fourth walk to commemorate the great famine in this land. We are aware that then there was a great deal of injustice, exploitation, and oppression. And we want to link that catastrophe to the catastrophes that are threatening our world today.
Well, it's just tremendous honor to be invited here, to be able to contribute to the people who died here in the struggle of the Irish. I consider that an honor in itself. I regard all of us here as part of a great family of resistance. And I think what's so wonderful about today and the commemoration that it represents is that it connects the causes of what happened 150 years ago here with the causes of similar tragic and terrible events throughout the world that are happening now.
I hope that by being open about our own experience, we can help to look at this tragedy and help to try and heal ourselves and the deep wound which I know is still with us. So I consider it not just a duty to be here today, but really an honor and a privilege to be on this walk. We won't be walking alone, but the dead will be walking with us also.
I think it's time for us as people to really actually understand a very, very deep lesson from the Irish famine. The idea for me that 1 million of our people died here in this land such a short time ago is actually incredible. And I'm not entirely sure that we really have ever been able to fully recall them. I'm really glad that Afri started to do a famine walk in the last 29 years. Because just once a year, we get to really commemorate what actually happened.
And, I want to thank Afri, because if it wasn't for Afri, I wouldn't have set up Children in Crossfire, really. And it was during a walk in Mississippi, the Trail of Tears, and that was an Afri walk, that I decided that I would sell out the business and set up Children in Crossfire.
And we do want to say thank you to Afri for their commitment to the struggle for justice and peace and equity everywhere in the world. Afri.
For Erin's sake, sing o'er, let England quake. We'll watch till death for Erin's sake.
Thank you, everybody. Thanks for tuning in, and thanks for joining us as we looked at that short reflection video. It's a beautiful video capturing a huge history of the great, at this stage, the word iconic has been used quite a bit to describe the Afri Famine Walk. I suppose it's with a degree of sadness that we can't be gathered today in Lewisburg and in the Doolough Valley to walk together, but we are joined together by the power of technology. And I, for one, am grateful to be able to connect with friends, new and old, and you're all very welcome. And it does feel like Afri isn't just a community, but it's also a family. It's a family of people deeply committed to social justice and people power. And I think given all that's going on in the world today, those themes have never been more relevant. And one man that has been keeping the flame alive since, I believe, 1988, and he hasn't aged a day, is Joe Murray, who is the Afri coordinator. And big welcome to Joe. I'm just wondering how you're feeling today, Joe, with not being in Mayo as has been a ritual for you every year.
Well, first of all, Gráinne Malone, Ruairí, to you for bringing us all together in this virtual reality here. And Céad Míle Fáilte Riv Gach Duine, that's to everyone who's tuned in. Yeah, it's a really strange thing, Ruairí. I've said it to a number of people. We couldn't have imagined back in 1988 when we had the first famine walk in Doolough that some 33 years later, we would be confined to our sitting rooms and doing the walk in a virtual sense rather than being able to be out and walking and in the way that we have done it for the past so many years. That video there, as you said, is a very powerful reminder of what has happened and in just some elements of that past history. We saw a lot of people there. Desmond Tutu, who appropriately is the inspiration for the entire famine walk. It was at a talk that he gave in Sean McDermott Street that the idea of the famine walk came about. Don Mullen was then director of Afri. He instigated and launched the first famine walk in 1988 as a result of that amazing talk by Desmond Tutu in Sean McDermott Street. So yeah, strange feeling of unreality, Ruairí, I suppose, but also a sense of, I suppose, gratitude that we've been able to stay on the road for so long, the long and winding road. It has been a long and winding road. And a sense of, gratitude for the amazing people that have walked with us and with whom we have walked in solidarity. I always say this walk is about memory, very important. We remember our famine dead. It's also about an expression of compassion, and that, as you say, is a much needed dimension in our world today. But it's also solidarity, and solidarity is a really important part of it. And, so for me, the walk joins all those dots: compassion, memory, and solidarity. And therefore, it's something very special. And yeah, I miss being in the Doolough Valley today.
Yeah, it's like, how do you feel at this moment? Have you a sense of sadness, or is this the fact that we can gather online helping to kind of capture some of that community energy? And I mean, it's amazing to see the comments coming in on screen. We've got Donegal, we've got right over to Virginia in the US, we've got London, more Dublin, we've got Aberystwyth in Wales. Let me see what else we have here. Another dub. We have Troy in New Jersey. Hello to Mary Beth and Bob. We've got St. Paul, Minnesota. I mean, the list goes on here, Joe. There's Cumbria. In fact, you know, what I'm really seeing from this is that the Famine Walk is a global community, as are the Irish people a global people.
Yeah, well, that's extraordinary for me to hear that and to see that, Rory. You know, when Lisa Patton, actually, our former administrator, first suggested this at a board meeting a few months ago, I couldn't foresee how it could happen. And then after you launched your great book, Hitching for Hope, in the same manner, began to see a possibility around this. And now to be here and to see people joining us from all over Ireland and all over the world is astonishing, really, and it's very heartening. And as you say, I think what it says is that this is a bigger thing than any of us. You know, some of us were there at the beginning, but it has grown into something incredible. Extraordinary people have gathered around the concept, the idea, but I think most of all what it represents, which is, you know, really about, we cannot forget our history. We cannot repeat the mistakes of our history, and we have a great need for solidarity. Seeing that during the pandemic in our own country, the great solidarity that's been shown among communities, we need to stretch this outside ourselves, and really we've got to stretch it around the world. And you know, that's, I think, what the Famine Walk represents to many people.
Absolutely. Joe, if I was to ask you, you know, 2 or 3 highlights from over those many years, what might come to mind?
Well, there's a number of highlights, Rory. It's very hard to single any of them out, but you couldn't overlook Desmond Tutu. You know, an extraordinary man, the Afri's patron, and he came there to that valley in the west of Ireland, and he, as usual, was a beacon of light, which he is in the world. One of my sons recently said, "You should never meet your hero," but in this case, I did, and he lived up to expectations and even exceeded them. So that's certainly one. You know, John Pelger, and that great phrase that we're one great family of resistance. It's a powerful phrase. My Tet Ledesma from the Philippines, you know, saying that the coffin ships are back. You know, which was a sad reality. The Choctaw, amazing that link, which again has come to the fore, and you know, we that act of generosity by the Choctaw in 1847 is now being returned by Irish people, which is a fantastic thing to see. It's the completing of the circle, as Gary White there used to call it. You know, so that was fantastic. The Maya people from Guatemala, that's something that stays in my memory. They were so respectful, so appreciative, so, you know, so humble and so wonderful. I remember they kissed the ground when they came to the valley, and they said, "When we walk this valley, we were walking with the spirits of your ancestors."
It's powerful stuff.
So extraordinary memories. Yeah. Extraordinary memory, and then that moment with that just Lisa Lamb singing "The West Awake," Christy Moore and Declan O'Rourke with Connacht Orphan, which is a most powerful song. It's on actually our Famine Walk video, or DVD, or CD, in fact. So, but you know, moments of magic, moments of sadness, moments of recalling tragedy, of being with people who are living through tragedy, and then moments of exhilaration through music. Too numerous to mention: Ronnie Drew, Christy Moore, you know, Declan O'Rourke, Lisa Lamb, Damien Dempsey, just so many. Our own Rog Whelan, whom we'll hear from later on, and Emer Lynam. You know, just that blend, and I think that's what makes it something special, is that it brings so many elements together, so many elements: community, walking, solidarity, memory, so it's a rich tapestry of emotion, and there's something viscerally right about doing such a thing. And we hope to do it again this year, if we can, later this year, but certainly we will resume next year if we're able to. I see Sean Deegan from Sao Paulo, a great friend of mine, sending in a message, which is fantastic. He was a board member of Afri many years ago. So things like that just warm your heart.
Yeah, it's amazing that people here in Brazil and the US and France and all over. There's somebody in Italy. So you're all very welcome. Some people are joining in now. You're all very welcome. If you would like to comment and say where you're joining in from, feel free to share any memories of the Famine Walk over the years. Joe, myself, and others will be looking at those as we go, but also after this evening's event as well. I'm going to take a step over, Joe, and play a little message that Cuiva de Barra from Trócaire has sent in to us. It's only a short 90 seconds or so. So just bear with me for a second, folks, as I try and master some of the technological aspects to this evening.
Just to say there, Rory, that Trócaire have been great supporters.
Trócaire is delighted with the virtual Famine Walk this year. Trócaire and Afri share a common set of values and beliefs. Belief in a just world, belief in peace and in human rights. Afri's Famine Walk is an expression of compassion and human rights and memory. Every year, Afri undertake this walk and bring our memory back to the time when the Choctaw Indian nation provided a donation to help people in Ireland who were suffering from Ungurtamur, the Great Famine, at that time. This solidarity resonates strongly in our memory and connects us very much to the present day, where COVID-19 is creating untold misery and harm in many parts of the world. Hunger is on the increase. Participating in the virtual Famine Walk this year is a fantastic
So that was a big thanks to Muireann de Barra there. I'm just seeing a notice coming up on the screen since some people are having technical delays on the Facebook feed. So we also are streaming live to Afri's YouTube account. I would ask Raj and Larissa and any of our friends on any of the streams, if you don't mind sharing the YouTube link in the comments section of Facebook. So this will save me having to kind of run out the door and do it on another computer. But hopefully we're okay. If a couple of you don't mind commenting, just letting us know how the connection is for you. Obviously we don't have the same budget as RTE or BBC or anything like that. So appreciate your patience. Hopefully the feed is holding up well for you. I myself am coming live from Lahinch in County Clare in the west of Ireland. Joe is at home in Dublin. So hopefully the technology is going to hold up well for us tonight. Joe, do you want to say a few words just about the funders and supporters of the Famine Walk over the years?
Yeah, well, we've had so many, Rory, and thanks to every one of them, individuals and organisations, and among them has been Trócaire, and it was great to have Cuiva send a message of support and solidarity. Trócaire is a great organisation with whom we are closely affiliated, and they have supported us generously over the years. Concern also support us, and we'll be hearing a message from Michael Durley of Concern very shortly. But I suppose it's not just the organisations, Irish Aid also, we're grateful for that support, but it's the support of individuals, people who turn up year after year to continue to do the walk, who get sponsorship, who travel from long distances. We've had people really from all over the world. In recent years, we've had a group who have come from Germany, and I think they're actually tuned in tonight. And they've come generously supported the event and have been very moved by the experience that they have gained. And I suppose that's something to say to people, is that there's nothing like the actual experience of the walk. This is incredible to be part of this virtual event, but there's nothing like getting your feet on the ground and being out there in that extraordinary, beautiful, breathtaking valley in Doolough in County Mayo, and walking the walk. I suppose to some extent tonight we're talking the talk, but there's nothing like combining that with, you know, the spectacular, rugged beauty of that part of County Mayo, and all the other elements that come in, as well as the experience of walking. So, you know, again, thanks to Concern and Trócaire and Irish Aid and all the other individuals in particular who have supported us. And you know, we all are concerned about the Sustainable Development Goals and achieving those goals, and we're all at one in those. And you know, this event brings up so many issues: sustainability, climate change, biodiversity. Clare O'Grady Walshe will be talking later, and you know, one of the issues that it was Clare that brought to my attention, that among all the elements that were involved in An Gorta Mór was an environmental disaster. The fact that we became dependent on one variety of potato. Of 2,000 varieties, we became dependent on one. And when that was struck by blight, the entire crop was wiped out. And we know what happened. 1 million people died. 1.5 million were forced to emigrate. So we need to learn the lesson of that. We need to save our biodiversity. We're in UN reports tells us now that we have unprecedented damage done to our biodiversity. So we need to turn that around. We can do it as individuals in our own back gardens. We don't have to lawn mow to the roots of the grass. We can leave margins. We can create wild spaces wherever that is possible. So let's do our bit to preserve biodiversity as well.
Great, thanks, Joe. So I hope your lawn is growing nice and wild there in Dublin, Joe. It's hopefully turning into a little jungle,
Rory, it's
full of bees.
Well, it's turning into a nice little. On one side we have wildflowers, and on the other side we have potatoes and carrots and onions and you know, food growing. So food and wildness, and we all need a wild corner in our garden and wherever we can create it.
Yeah, absolutely. Joe, Mark Cumming has just let us know that there was an issue with the sound on Cuiva's video. So I'll just let people know that I will replay that message at the end of this evening, and I will also play Michael Durley has a message from Concern. I will also post those to the Afri Facebook page, and to let anyone know that if you're having any issues with Facebook, again, we have posted the link to the YouTube channel in all the comments in the comment section. So thanks for your patience. Thanks for all your messages. I'll try and highlight some of them. Lots more coming in. People in West London, Galway City. Hello, Simon, Ian, Sean. Everybody's very welcome here tonight. I'm going to be having Emer Lynam on very shortly. She's due to come on screen very soon. Emer, if you're there, we'll be ready for you any second now. And then we're going to be hearing from Clare O'Grady Walshe, talking about food sovereignty and seed sovereignty. And then we're going to have the magician, maestro, violin player and wise man, Colm Mac Con Iomaire. Not that anybody is any wiser than anybody else in tonight's forum. I think there's a lot of wisdom in the room, including those of you in the comments. I know there's a lot of experts on many of these issues among us here tonight. And then we're going to be having Donna Vuma, who is a member of MASI, the Movement of Asylum Seekers in Ireland. And we have wonderful youth student, climate activist Gráinne Malone from County Offaly. So we've a full schedule. We're probably kind of running behind already. And we're going to cherry it off.
Did you mention John Maguire,
wonderful
Rory?
Whelan and Paul O'Toole. So, sorry, Joe, you were saying?
No, I just wondered, did you mention John Maguire there, who will be next up, I think?
I did not mention John Maguire, so thank you, Joe. It's good to have a co-facilitator in the house here tonight. I'm still waiting for Emer to come online here, so if I don't hear from her shortly, I'm going to move on to Clare O'Grady Walshe. So Clare, if you're ready to go, then we can bring you into the studio anytime now. And in the meantime, Joe, I'm just wondering, you know, many of these issues, people can get kind of a little bit overwhelmed by the scale and magnitude when we talk about injustice and suffering. Where do you see signs of hope personally on a personal level?
Well, I do see hope, Rory, and you know, over the past 33 years, you know, there were some bleak global situations that we faced. You know, for example, when I got involved first, the whole issue of apartheid was a major issue in South Africa, and it was in that context that we invited Desmond Tutu to Ireland. He came eventually when he was given his passport. If you can imagine, it was his passport was taken from him by the South African government at that time. But when he eventually got his passport back, he accepted our invitation and came to Ireland and spoke incredibly movingly about the whole issue of apartheid. And some years later, apartheid was dismantled. The story of East Timor, which also featured on the Famine Walk, Tom Hyland was a leader at one stage, and I hope Tom might be looking in from Delhi at the moment. But East Timor seemed to be an intractable, absolutely impossible situation. People like Tom around the world just didn't give up, but more importantly, the people of Timor didn't give up, and they achieved their freedom as well. When we started this walk, there was a conflict in full flow in Northern Ireland. You know, that has been brought to an end. You know, so sometimes the things that seem impossible become possible. I think Mandela said something like, things are only impossible until they are achieved. And you know, so we just keep on believing, we keep on walking. And I suppose the symbol of the famine road is significant, that we just keep walking. We do it year after year. It's not about the destination, it's about the walking, about the keeping the light burning, about you know, just refusing to give up on what we believe in, on bringing about the change that is necessary. And hopefully, you know, in this pandemic, when people have had time to stop and think that they're, you know, we need a new reality, and let's hope we can create a new reality coming from this pandemic. And I think there are reasons for hope, even in the sadness and the, you know, restrictions and all that has been part of the pandemic. We also have this kind of healing of the planet.
Thank you, Joe. So speaking of, well, we actually have Clare O'Grady Walshe that's going to be talking a lot more about the healing of the planet through our relationship with ecology. So Clare will be coming in shortly, but firstly, I'm going to bring in John Maguire, and thanks for the reminder, Joe. On so John is hopefully coming on screen any second now.
Yes,
we have to summons him with some sort of magic here. Come on, Joe. No.
A great wise man.
Can you see the? No,
hello?
We're going to have to go with a wise woman here, if which is.
Oh, I can hear John.
Emer.
Yeah.
You can hear him. I can't see him. So,
I can hear him and see him.
Hello. Yeah.
Oh, you can see him. I can't see him. Strange.
Hello, Joe. Hello, Claire.
Hi, John.
Hello. We can see him, Rory, so you can proceed.
Okay, Joe. So thank you, everybody, for your patience. It seems like I'm having technical difficulties at my end. It's never fun for anyone to observe, so apologies. I'm going to remove Joe from the screen here temporarily. Joe, you're welcome to hang back. I might bring you back in later. I'm going to bring Joe in and hope that I can see John. So John, I'm having trouble seeing and hearing you at the moment. John,
Okay.
could you just tell us a bit about the legacy of An Gortamór, the Great Famine, or the Great Hunger rather, and some of your own perspectives on how it relates to Ireland today and your own sense of, I suppose, your own scholarship of An Gortamór over the years?
Well, yes, I'm not a historian, let alone of the Great Hunger, but I'm easily and happily drawing on the great atlas, the Atlas of the Great Irish Famine, which is a wonderful resource produced by my former colleagues in University College Cork. And indeed, we have here a photo on the front of it, which is a very graphic representation of an eviction by a man called Daniel MacDonald. And it's a picture that I hope people will be able to go and see in person soon, but you can see online from the Crawford Gallery in Cork. And it sums up a lot of the forces that were impinging on people. We're recalling an exemplary tragedy within a huge catastrophe, a catastrophe in which over 1 million died, 1 million emigrated. Savage blows were done to the Gaelic language and culture, and a lot of damage was done particularly to the situation and opportunities of women and less economically powerful women, and to the fragile systems of childcare and working which they had evolved. And that set a frame for women's issues for a very long time. And a mark was left also on children and on the physical and mental health of generations of the population. But I think maybe we shouldn't patronize the past or its people, because particularly in that picture by Daniel MacDonald, we can see the dignity, the courage, the vitality of people being forced to make choices in a structure that was inimical to all of those qualities. A social and economic structure, as Michael Doorley from Concern has said, that was taken to be natural, leading to a process that was seen as normal. But when that process, that social and economic process, was challenged by the collapse of the potato crop, it was reimposed by ideology, by the power of law, and by naked force. For example, the number of soldiers in the country doubled, and by the end of the famine, there were 4 soldiers in Ireland for every 5 on the island of Britain. As for such relief as was ultimately granted and then withdrawn by the British government, it took £10 million sterling, a large amount. But over 10 million was spent on the army and 4 million on the police. And all of these were resources which were maintaining a colonial system where the whole shape of a society was being distorted by the sharp demands and the cold neglect of another metropolitan society, under which it became ultimately just a food source rather than a functioning economy. Before the Great Hunger, there had been a reasonably good diet, and the Irish people, by European standards, were pretty healthy, but the whole structure was fragile. It was depending on one staple and only one variety of that, the lumper potato. And that was the subsistence of a rising population being driven onto the very margins of the society, onto small holdings on those margins, under a landlord system where they had to work 250 days of every year just to have a cabin and 1 acre of land on which to grow some food to feed their families. And as my former colleague in UCC, Willie Smith, put it, they were at the receiving end of a Byzantine hierarchy of grasping middlemen. Now, there's one important difference, I think, between the Great Hunger and the COVID pandemic here and around the world at the moment. Because in the Great Hunger, life was not being directly threatened. It wasn't an illness. It was the collapse of one type of food and the absence of other types. That led to hunger, that led to disease and death and emigration. And during that time, food was being exported. In Skibbereen, one of the worst hit areas, in 1846, it was reported there was plenty of meat and bread and fish. And often these foods, and grain in particular, were exported to feed the colonial economy under guard. For example, 2 guns and 50 cavalry to escort a shipment of food, not into, but out of Waterford Harbour. And all of this was a reimposing of that natural laissez-faire market that Michael Doorley has been talking about. But there was resistance. There was resistance in thought and in word and in deed. And quite ironically, 3 years before the Doolough tragedy, Father Patrick McManus, the local Catholic priest, wrote from Louisburg to the authorities and said, in the absence of the magistrate, in the absence of the Lord Lieutenant, with absentee landlords, what else can we do? We seek not alms, we solicit employment. And of course, there were the Quakers, particularly, who set up effective soup kitchens and did set up a system to keep people alive, keep them in the game of life. With the resources they could raise, they refused to join in, at times, the farce of official relief. And as Cuiva has reminded us, the Choctaw Nation, from their trail of tears, sent a practically symbolic gesture of solidarity to their fellow humans suffering in Ireland. Now we have concern, and we've Trócaire, Moses and the prophets, to sound the alarm and to point us in the direction of hope. And that's along with the other good works that are supported by Irish Aid and being done formally and informally by so many Irish people in so many parts and for so many places in the world. And we've seen with the COVID pandemic at home in our Western or Northern countries that the impossible has begun to be done, that people have begun really to ask the question, can the economy work for the people rather than the people for the economy? That's been done in our global north. It was clearly vitally necessary in the Great Hunger and was savagely, the question was raised and it was savagely repressed. Now it's just as clear and vital as we've been told already and will see in further detail for the global south, here and now. And in conclusion, I'll say, we're rightly very fond of quoting the old Irish Shanachil, the proverb, Scoa Chéile Warrants Nadine, that we live, people live in one another's shade. And maybe we're now faced, and Afri and all the organizations and the people who are working with us are faced with the possibility of making that the healing, cooperative, respectful, humanitarian shade of a transformation of the world's relations and the position of the global south, rather than the cold, dark shadow of a turned back and neglect. Thanks, Ruairí.
That was very powerful, John. Thank you so much.
Very powerful, John. Thank you so much. Very powerful, John. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Apologies, I had a bit of technical problems at this end and just fixed the microphone, so thanks for your patience. So I'm going to welcome Emer Lynam on screen and say goodbye to John. Thank you, John. Appreciate it.
Perfect. Hi everyone, I'm Emer Lynam and I'm delighted to commemorate the famine with a tune on the harp this evening. Obviously we can't go and do the Famine Walk physically, but it's so wonderful that we can connect in this way and not let the day slip by unmarked. The Famine Walk is actually my favourite Afri event, just because I think it's so important that we don't forget our history and our ancestors. And what I really love about the event is that what happened so many years ago in Ireland is still happening now all over the world, and that people are still being pushed off their land, they're still being displaced, and they're still facing starvation. So I'd like to dedicate this tune to Indigenous people everywhere who are being displaced from their lands, in particular to the Quechua tribe of Ecuador. I know one of their members, his name is Kurakindi. He's a shaman. He lives most of the time in the UK, but he's fought relentlessly for years against the oil companies in Ecuador who have poisoned his people's lands and his waters. And I just learned about 3 weeks ago that another oil pipe burst inevitably into one of the last pure rivers in Ecuador that his tribe depends on. So I'd like to dedicate this piece to them. And I think Rory has provided a link very kindly, which if you click on, you can make a donation if you would like. I'm sure it will be very much appreciated. So the tune I'm going to play is called Bridget Cruise, and it's by the great Turlough Carlin. It's about a woman that he loved. Okay, so thank you to Rory and Afri for
Thank you so much, Emer.
organizing everything.
That was beautiful. That looks like a very warm and toasty fire there, Emer.
It's a cold day today.
I think you've got a special helper that's doing the filming there. Do you want to give them a shout out?
A very skilled helper here. Big man. Professional help.
Right. Emer, I have shared that link in the comment section of Afri's Facebook feed, the link that you referred to. So do you want to give it another shout out again, and we'll try and make sure people can check that out.
Yeah, thank you so much. So it's to make a donation to the Quechua tribe in Ecuador. Their rivers have been poisoned about 3 weeks ago, a pipe burst. I think it's a cacao in the Napal River. There's more information in the link. It would be really great if anyone could give even a small amount. It would go a really long way. Really, they just need filtration devices and medical support at this point. So yeah, thank you.
That's great. Thanks so much, Emer. It's great to see you. Thanks for the music.
See you. Bye.
So, folks, we're rolling on tonight, and we're joined now by another very special guest, Dr. Clare O'Grady Walshe, who I'm sorry, Clare, you did mention the doctor title earlier that you weren't so mad to say it, but for some reason it came out anyway. So we'll honour the doctorate and the activist and all parts of you, the academic, the scholar, the activist.
Thanks very much. It's just when I'm in my kitchen, and my children say I can't perform operations or anything, so not that kind of doctor, but yeah. But it's just wonderful to hear Emer playing the harp. What a gift, I have a very special connection with the harp, as Irish people we do, and we commemorate the suppression and oppression of harpists in Ireland as well. So it was particularly poignant for Emer to play Turlough O'Carolan, who was one of the great harpists, as we know, that kept the tradition alive, and that Irish musicians today are actually remembering or bringing back that music, from the archives. I know that Steve Cooney and Leisha Kelly as well have been involved, and lots of other people. And I don't underestimate the power of us actually bringing back the music, the lost music, because what we're commemorating, what Afri have been so powerful in doing in this commemoration of the Irish famine, has really been to recall and to remember the people, the fallen, the people who were lost to us, a whole peasant class of our society who were predominantly Irish speaking, who knew the names of things, the names of places, whether it was, Glowndall, Lucca, if you consider it. I often say it to friends who come from abroad, it means the glen of the two lakes. There's something in Indigenous language that what was lost to us in the loss of language was the loss of the names of things. And so, I was kind of laughing earlier, thinking, because I was going to try and film this in my new polytunnel that I'm very proud of, because it's my first time having a polytunnel to grow food. And I was thinking of the line from Leonard Cohen's song that is like, I hope you're keeping some kind of record. And I thought he meant a potato variety, because I'm growing a record variety of potato called record. And so there's so much about the names of seeds and varieties that's been brought back that I find it's such a hopeful time, that one of the best things that's happening in bringing back this music, in recalling the lost from the Great Hunger, from Ungurtha Moor, and in bringing back the varieties of seeds that the wonderful brown envelope seeds in West Cork, and Irish seed savers in West Clare and East Clare, and in the Knoll, the herb, I think the wild herbs people and wildflowers, and all of the different people who are now bringing back the seed varieties that were lost to us. So it's very important to record and document these things that, as John Maguire was really brilliant there. he for his sins taught me in UCC 100 years ago in sociology. And I suppose what John was saying there about the structure of the society and the things that were wrong, that actually the context for the famine, it wasn't our fault, really, that we starved. It was because we were only growing this one variety of potato. But this was in the 1840s. It was before the 1870s, of the time of the Land League, which my own great-grandfather was involved in. He was with Michael Davitt in West Waterford, and they fought the last eviction with Michael Davitt. In fact, P.F. Welsh, who was my great-grandfather. So I think that what the Land League was, you know, and Diarmaid Furter spoke about this recently, saying that Angurta Moor was really the big thing that changed Irish history, because then the 3 Fs came through the Land War and the Land League, the free sale, fixity of tenure, and fair rent. So reminiscent, such similarities to what we have been experiencing today in terms of that insecurity that people feel. So for me, there's this monumental opportunity through the crisis that we're in with this pandemic at the moment, which, as the Chinese say, is both a danger and an opportunity. This magnificent opportunity for restoration, recovery, revitalization, remembering, putting things back together again. And so that we can actually grow food and have the freedom and the sovereignty to grow food in our local place that we wouldn't have been allowed to be in the time when we lost so much, when we were dependent and we were not allowed to grow a wide variety of food.
Where do you see the issues today, Claire, around monoculture, both in Ireland and elsewhere?
Well, you see, Ruairí, what was interesting for me is, like, I'm really an ordinary Irish woman who just started growing seeds in my back garden. We discovered that, you know, Anita and Tommy Hayes, they had founded Seed Savers back in the early 1990s. As I always say, it was at the height of the Gulf War. What a hopeful thing to do, like in 1991. That if they thought the world was ending tomorrow, I'd plant an apple tree today. And that's precisely what they did. And Anita went and got a PhD that had been done in the 1940s by Dr. Keith Lamb, and retraced his steps of his PhD that had been done by bicycle in the 1940s to try and find all the old orchards around Ireland. So I think that was such a great thing to do. I suppose, and bringing back now, we've got like over 160 different varieties of apple tree that have been restored in Ireland. So where we're at now, I think, is actually at a really key moment where we can push for these kind of things, where investment and policy needs to be shifted towards financing these kind of conservation efforts and conservation through use. And so for me, when I started growing the Irish pea in particular, which is one of the seed varieties that Seed Savers had repatriated from the Vavilov Institute in Russia, that great Russian scientist who is, if you like, it's the lost scientific paradigm, at least, or it was the road not chosen. They went for the scientific yield route instead of what Vavilov was doing, because he's regarded as the father of biodiversity, and what he was doing. And Anita is a great expert and has a great love for Vavilov, because he pursued the route of discovering where plants originated from and discovered the 8 key centers of origin of key crop varieties. And Ethiopia was one of them. And that's why I became very interested in understanding then what it was about these countries, particularly in Africa, where there's obviously a lot of our aid and our involvement with these countries is our solidarity, as was also spoken about earlier, the wonderful work done by Ireland Aid, non-tied aid all the years, and by Troker and Concern and Self-Help Africa, and all sorts of people who do a lot of work there. But it struck me that it's a very important moment, because when we think of what the Choctaw did for us in the 1840s, it was actually unconditional love. It was compassion. It was aid without expecting anything in return. And one of the things that really struck me in these news reports recently on RTE was that the Navajo and the Hopi were going, why are we getting all of these subscriptions or this money from Ireland? What's with the Irish? They didn't keep record of the fact that we owe them something. They are amazed at the fact that this solidarity is being returned. But when I went to Ethiopia, the one thing that I could not believe was the incredible advancement of Ethiopian science, their understanding of their importance of, and the same in Kenya, in parts of Kenya, but although the government was much more open to globalizing forces of corporate intrusion, if you like. But in Ethiopia, They knew they're a Vavilovian centre of origin for coffee, for example, because coffee is endemic to the region and it's an extraordinarily important secondary place of evolution for barley, which the local population hugely rely upon because it grows in very degraded soil. And I went into the Ethiopian Biodiversity Institute in Addis, Ababa, and was just gobsmacked, absolutely amazed at what was like a Swiss vault with 100,000 accessions of seed. And it's a treasure trove, but they understood that at the height of the Doolough famine, that their seeds would be blamed, if you like. And yet we know from the great economist, the Nobel Prize winning economist, Amartya Sen, that it's access and entitlement are the main antecedents to famine. And that's why when Joe spoke about Desmond Tutu earlier, it was so, so important, because Desmond Tutu said, food is not an accident. Food is a result of social and economic and political decisions. And so it is really important that we listen to what the Ethiopian farmers, who are scientists, you see them in the fields. I cannot believe the knowledge that farmers, that horticulturists and agriculturists all over the world have, and this tremendous ability that plant scientists and botanists have to maintain the diversity in their fields, because they know, and Ethiopia is an uncolonized country, and they hold that very dear to them, that they were uncolonized. They know that their seed diversity is the essential buffer for them against famine and against climate change. And so I think that our solidarity with them must be like the unconditional, loving, compassionate gesture of the Choctaw and the Quakers to us at the height of our famine and our hunger, that it would be unconditional and that we would listen to what the people would say. Because if we think of the Irish people that died, our ancestors, my ancestors, and I've done a lot of historical work on my own family to try and understand how did some of them survive the famine. How, we are, and I remember meeting Mary Robinson back in the 90s when we first met her, and she came to the Afri peace conference in Kildare, and she said, at the 100th anniversary of the Irish famine, it was still too soon to commemorate it. It was still too recent for us to recall it. So we are actually, and I am, other people are different generations than me, but we're the 5th generation, and they say it takes that long to be able to recall it. But it's very, very important for us that we understand that we can't let ourselves be caught again in a trap of monoculturalism, of monoculture cropping. We need polycultures, we need a lot of seed sovereignty, hubs of seed sovereignty all over the country and all over the world, because it's not about protectionism and isolationism. It's actually that this coronavirus, which actually the native indigenous people that I'm in touch with, like the Ojibwe tribe in Minnesota and the other tribes, are saying this is a spirit with a function. This coronavirus, this is teaching us something. Mother Earth needs to breathe. And we've been saying this for a while. We are actually now feeling the loss of our forests, the loss of the Congo and the Amazon. These are the lungs of our planet. So I see the Isaac Index and the GDP and all of that, and it's like, but the Earth has a different bank account. So states, GDP, all of these things don't matter if the Earth is actually really being destroyed. So it's 2005 since the leading scientists across the planet have warned us that 2/3 of the Earth's ecosystem were in danger of collapsing. So for me, who's been working on water and energy and seeds and all of these things for many, many years, I still believe this is a huge moment, a globalized moment where we are all in the same boat, but we have to be really cognizant that it is a moment of restoration and recovery. And when you can't go very far outside, we can't go very far. It's, for me, what's helping me, and we all have our up days and bad days or whatever, but what helps me is that it is a journey within more than anything, and we have to dig very deep as we grieve the people we're losing now, but as we're commemorating the people we lost before. And we owe it to our ancestors, to the Irish ancestors, to do that, to do everything we can to ensure we do not get caught in the same place again, dependent on just monocultures and on huge companies and corporations who do not have our best interests at heart always.
That was very powerful, Claire. Thank you for that. Could you say a little bit more about that whole notion of sovereignty when it comes to the individual, and how, as individuals and also as smaller communities and in local areas, how we can take that power or realize that power?
Absolutely. Well, I suppose that one of the reasons why I had wanted to, or was hoping that I could film in my garden or whatever, except that the birds are too loud, actually. At the moment, it's not traffic. Thankfully, it's birds. They're starlings in my roof. They're very loud. And there is a guy playing hurling outside as well. So, but I think it's actually, for me, this is why the power of the seed, it's such a small thing. I have a very small urban back garden in Dublin. I think there's huge possibility. It's actually a very hopeful thing to do, to be able to plant a seed. Honestly, I'm an amateur gardener. If I can grow things without killing it for 18 years now, then anybody can. Anybody can save seeds. And then I was talking to the great Wayne Farnham earlier, who's working on the outreach program with Irish Seed Savers, and he's terrific. And they're doing a great outreach program. Go on to irishseedsavers.ie when in your own time and check it out, because we're going to, really it's possible for us to do things as a community. So it's not just me saving seeds. So I have got seeds ready to share with my friends on Monday when we're all allowed to meet again. I share over the wall with my neighbour and with my other neighbours on the other side. And even my GP rang me recently, and I thought he was doing contact tracing for the coronavirus, but he was actually looking for sweet potatoes. And I luckily still had some, and I cycled down with them. So I think that there's something really wonderful about what we're going to be able to do, because the back garden gardening is actually hugely, hugely important, and has been, it's documented that all over the world, it's actually one of a key ingredient of food security in a lot of places. I mean, we know it from Cuba, we know it from Rwanda during the genocide, where there was a potato famine the same year in 1994, that the huge diversity of bean seeds, and a wonderful plant scientist, a bean boffin of Rwanda at the time, saved a lot of the bean varieties. So we're seeing this kind of sovereignty, that kind of the actions, small actions of determining seed sovereignty and keeping it and getting it back into the hands of farmers and gardeners as guardians of seed is hugely important. And it's possible to grow an immense diversity in a small back garden even. But if we're doing it as seed guardians across communities and increasing that, expanding that out, I think then it's going to become a very, very exciting project that will actually have a dual function of not just conservation, but actually also food security. And that's the central link between food security, seed security, and seed sovereignty. And so, I mean, actually Raj Patel, the great Indian writer, is wonderful on the issue of food sovereignty when he says, well, it's possible to be food secure in a dictatorship or in a prison, but food sovereignty is an entirely different thing. And in the issue of seed sovereignty, it's about control. It's about power, control, risk, and benefit. That's politics. And so in a way, it's so important for us. Who governs matters in every single one of our countries. It matters that Bolsonaro is in control in the Amazon in Brazil at the moment. It's really detrimental to the forest and to all of us. And it matters here too. So I have to say, I'm really thrilled there. For the first time, there has been a seed steward, a seed saver, a farmer, a scientist, and a woman, Holly Kearns, elected to Dáil Éireann. So we actually have somebody right in there in the new Dáil for the Social Democrats. I have no party political affiliation, but I think we're going to see more and more wonderful people like that coming forward. And so I'm excited about this younger generation coming up. Look at even Emer Lynam there playing the harp, but also speaking out. And we're going to hear from Gráinne in Offaly and Donnah as well. These are our citizens. These are the people who are actually forging the future. And I hope that they actually place the beauty actually of seed sovereignty at the heart of the work as well, because we have a lot of people from different cultures here now, and boy, do they have amazing stories about food. And so that's why I don't like the word agribusiness, anything. It's agriculture. So culture, keep culture at the heart of our agriculture. That's what we really, really want, because they are inextricably linked, and they're inextricably linked to the soul and the remembered soul of the Irish people.
Wow, how do we finish up here, Claire? I think both myself and everybody else watching, some of the comments coming in have been phenomenal, and I think we need to get you, we need to kind of replace a Leo Varadkar with a Clare O'Grady Walshe. Is anybody with me on that? Can we imagine a state of the nation that actually speaks to the global reality, from the complexity of ecology to economy to well-being, and the interconnected reality around all of that, our personal power, our community power, and the global links around that. And so much of what you spoke to there, Claire, really went 100 miles deeper than anything I'm hearing from the political rhetoric. But as you said, there are signs of hope out there, and it's important that we rally behind them wherever we can find them, in whatever political guise they may come in. That there is a window of opportunity here that we can seize.
Absolutely, Ruairí. Well, thanks so much. Bye, everybody.
Thank you, Claire. We're going to have to get you on again. Thanks again. Okay, so folks, thanks for logging in, everyone. We actually have hundreds of people watching all over the world right now. We're broadcasting on multiple platforms. We're broadcasting on Periscope through Afri's Twitter account, my own Twitter account, Afri's YouTube channel, a couple of different Facebook channels, all the different bells and whistles and gadgets. So it's great. All your comments are welcome, your questions. We'll try and highlight and get to them all as much as possible. We don't want to keep everyone here all night, but it is wonderful. I can really feel that sense of community. I guess, like many people, I was reticent around technology and live streaming and all that kind of stuff. I've done a lot of it over the years, but I kind of felt like nothing can replace that human connection, face to face, eye to eye. And I still believe that, but I also believe that there is technology out there that we can use to create and reinforce the spirit of community. And I'll tell you that as I sit here between Lahinch and Ennistimon and County Clare, I'm really feeling the vibes. I'm feeling that sense of people power and community tonight. And it's so wonderful to see all these comments coming in. There's another one, Claire for Taoiseach. So many comments coming in. It's fantastic to see. It feels like people are getting rallied up and riled up. So we're going to proceed on with the evening, folks. He's been waiting patiently in the background. He is one of Ireland's, if not the planet's, finest musicians, if I can remember how to say that word. And I'm going to bring him on screen right now. And he is Colm Mac Con Iomaire. Colm, Fáilte.
Gurmagad, Kehultu.
Come on. How's all in Wexford?
We're grand, rural idyll, it's all good. We have space around our space here.
Nice. Thanks for waiting patiently there, Colm. We're in a different sort of time and space at the moment. I don't know if there's such thing as COVID time or community time, but that's one of the beautiful things about the Famine Walk, is there's this sense of the community, the vibes take over, and suddenly we don't know what dimension we're in, but it's a good dimension. So do you want to say a few words, or do you want to dive into the slipstream of the?
Yeah, I mean, I think firstly it's lovely to be a part of it. I think I was to be to take part in the walk itself a couple of years ago, and calendars collided rather, and so I'm really happy to be here and to contribute. And I just think from my own personal perspective, both my parents are from Connacht, so my mother's from Leitrim and my dad is a Connemara man, and they were economic migrants. They met in the 1950s in Dublin, and just they raised their family as Irish speakers. So all my life, growing up as a child, trying to figure out being an Irish person in an Irish capital city, and yet being treated and being seen as somehow alien or strange. So having that sense of being an outsider in your own capital city is it's very formative experience. So inevitably you explore and you investigate, well, you know, how that happened. And you know, I think most Irish people, perhaps, or many in fairness, would be oblivious to the idea, or perhaps to the loss of language, because everything is you know, in English, and languages are operating systems, and in a way it's like they're lenses we look through and see the world in a particular way. And since the 1850s, after the famine, and in those years afterwards, in a way we've been wearing somebody else's glasses. And it's not that I'm saying this from a point of a utopian view that, you know, everything will be fine if we all learnt our language again or whatever. That's in progress and it'll mind itself. But I think it's just really important to recognize the wound and the loss. My mother mentioned a couple of years ago to me, and it stuck with me. She heard Brendan O'Hehir, the writer, who was a good friend of my family's. He would be in and out of our house as kids, and he was talking about the idea of how quickly the language transition happened. So he gave an example of in the 1830s, Daniel O'Connell went to County Mayo in Castlebar. I think he gave a speech completely in English, and nobody understood him. And in the 1930s, De Valera went to Castlebar and gave a speech completely in Irish, and nobody understood him. So that's how quickly the transition, the turnover, the new regime kind of kicked in, you know. So as I say, it's important to remember and to acknowledge the loss. And I mean, if you were to kind of change the context and think of, imagine the French nation speaking English. I mean, it's unthinkable. And but so in a way that's kind of I think so much of our kind of post-colonial identity and cultural disorientation is so inextricably bound up with our loss of our original operating system. And also that then, of course, the language is so bound up with our feelings of shame, defeat, guilt at surviving something that's, you know, over. So that it's a sensitive spot for most Irish people, you know.
Absolutely, including myself, Colm, as I've written about in my new book that's available in all good bookstores, if only they were open. But that's another day's work. But it absolutely is something I've you know, reflected on deeply as someone. We're not going to get into it here, but with the Irish first name and
yeah, sure,
that sort of tinge or that stirring. Let's say there's a stirring in there among us. Many of us anyway, if we listen to it. And I suppose the question is, what is behind the stirring? And sometimes it's a call or an invitation back to nature, whether it be ecology or even the nature of our heritage. So I think language is certainly a huge part of that, and I appreciate you bringing that into the mix. And I think that's true for Indigenous cultures all around the world as well. And we're obviously particularly mindful at the moment of our Indigenous friends in the Hopi and Navajo and Choctaw nations, including many others in West Papua and all over the world. So I feel like Ireland can hold a torch for that remembering, if you like.
For sure, yeah. And also I think it's very much informs our relationship with poverty as well. I mean, I think, you know, coming through the famine and as we did, and having that trauma and experience and deep kind of wisdom, it also, I mean, it has a shadow side as regards our tendency for the past 150 years to infantilize our poor and hide them away in what, say in what began as, the euphemism, the workhouse, the poorhouse. And then in the 20th century, the industrial schools and the Magdalen laundries. And then you go into the 21st century and we're into direct provision and mass homelessness and, private hotels and them, so legacies. I mean, it's a really interesting time we live in at the moment because, in a way, the Irish famine was the first experiment in kind of free market capitalism. And you could say that hopefully, we're at the very end of that kind of period.
Well, certainly something's happening, Colm. We're in a moment and we're on a wave. I guess it depends how we want to maneuver our surfboards on the wave. So you look like you're about to pull off some moves there with that.
I will, yeah. I won't hold you long. I'm gonna play you the piece. There's what to play, and I thought if you were to reduce the sauce down to its essence, Roisin Dubh is what sprang to mind. And Roisin Dubh is a love song from they think it may date back and may have been based around Red Hugh O'Donnell, A. O'Donnell. And so that was in the Elizabethan era. But basically the love song became kind of politicized, and Roisin Dubh, the Black Rose, became a device for people to be able to sing about patriotism and, a sense of love for the country, which was otherwise. So it was kind of like a secret language that people could sing this love song for Ireland. Yeah. So this is what I thought I'd play for you. And I'll follow it up with a jig called My Mind Will Never Be Easy, which kind of ties in with the legacy.
Wonderful. Thanks so much, Colm, and thanks for joining us tonight. It's wonderful to have you here.
Pleasure. Lovely to hear everybody, and great, very, very educational. So, and well done, Joe, and well done, Afri. Mashiv.
Oh my God. That
Míle
was
fáilte.
beautiful, Colm. Thank you so much. I feel like I want to lie back here and get the sunset, and if you want to stay and lullaby me off to sleep, it would be fantastic.
No panic.
Oh, it's lovely, lovely. It's wonderful, Colm. I just want to end by asking you, Colm, where or what or who or what elements of sustenance or hope or inspiration are feeding you at the moment?
I think everybody's. It's really interesting. I mean, we spoke about this before, when you were launching your book recently, about the unique opportunities and the preciousness of the collective vulnerability that we have at the moment. In a way, there's a kind of a sense of tension and anxiety that I have with the kind of the reopening of the country, and wondering in a way that we're kind of in danger of losing something, a stillness that we've all experienced, and a huge amount of people, perhaps I would imagine, are experiencing that stillness for the first time. So it's been a really profound time, deep and obviously traumatic as well for those who've experienced loss, and the being denied the chance to mourn properly, to wake people, to have that sense of community, to be held by the local community. So it's been, but I concur completely with the previous speaker talking about the idea of I hope that this is a hinge where kind of I think it's time we had more women in charge, because we've certainly had enough of men behaving badly, royale across the world, and it's just got even more and more ugly. And in a way, the way forward is kind of never been more clear. So I'm optimistic, and I think it's an absolute privilege to be alive at this time, to have witnessed all of the changes that we've seen in such a short time over the past 30 years.
Hear, hear. Thank you, Colm. And with that in mind, we'll bring in some more powerful women into the mix. We're blessed, and the Afri community is blessed to have so many strong women in and around it. And indeed, I think women's voices on the whole continue to rise in Ireland. And I share that view that it's not even that we need something more equal, we need something profoundly different. And I think women's voices, women's views, women's values are a big part of that. Even if we think of the land of Ireland and Era being a feminine goddess, it might be time to go back to that source.
Right on, absolutely, yeah.
Okay, Colm, Gora Magot, EOI.
Míle fáilte, slán.
Slán. So, folks, we'll say goodbye to Colm. Big love to you, and thanks for joining us tonight. Next up, we have another very special guest. Feel like we're joined by luminaries from all over Ireland tonight. It's fantastic. And one very special person is about to appear on our screen, if everything goes well. And that is Donna Vuma. Hello, Donna.
Hi, Rory. How are you?
I'm very good. Great to see you.
Great. Good to see you too. Hi, everyone.
So we've got Donna. I think you've been watching for a while, so you've seen there's people actually watching from all over the world. You got to see Colm's music, obviously.
Amazing, amazing.
Flying in from,
very special.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Donna, I hear some very huge congratulations are in order.
Yeah. Thank you, Rory. Yeah, we have
you want to tell everyone, or will I?
That's a tricky question. Maybe you do it.
Well, I obviously don't know all the details, but I do know because I saw on Instagram a beautiful new baby called Frederick. Your son has arrived into the world.
Yes.
So,
yes. Much earlier than we expected. He's 4 weeks early, but nonetheless, we're very thrilled that he's here. Very happy with a little Frederick in the house.
When did he arrive?
He's 8 days old now, so still very new. We haven't even told him that Earth is on lockdown. We're easing him into the world. Yeah.
So it's especially great that you made the time to join us here tonight, Donna. For people who don't know you, I mean, you're kind of you're pretty much a public figure at this point. I mean, you've been around a while and involved in a lot of high-profile campaigns. But for those that don't know you, can you explain a little bit about who you are and some of your background and what brings you to the Afri conversation?
Right. Okay. Thanks for that, Rory. Well, I guess I'm here in Ireland now since 2014, and I came here with my children to seek asylum. So I'd been living in direct provision until, a few months ago when I finally decided to move out, although I'm still waiting for a decision on my asylum application. So that's how I came across Afri. I met Joe in 2015 after a presentation that we had delivered at the Addis with MASI. So that's how I then got involved with Afri, just seeing the work that Afri does in terms of fighting for global justice. Some of the issues that they work on are issues that I'm very passionate about. So I campaigned a lot for the end of the direct provision system, which I feel is very unjust and it's totally not suitable, not fit for purpose. I guess that's me in a nutshell.
Donna, where do you think things are at around direct vision? Because obviously it's 20 years old. I think this year it was set up as a temporary system. I'm conscious that family hubs were set up as a temporary system. And it seems like I think it's already been referenced, they're almost part of Ireland's history of institutionalization. And it feels like we may be closer to ending this system, and it seems to be there's almost a consensus that it needs to change. But what's going to happen? I mean, do you feel there's any sign of hope on a political level? What do you think people need to do to make that happen?
Well, we're hoping that what the COVID-19 situation has done is just to highlight what we have been saying all along and what other organizations have been saying as well, that the system is totally unfit for purpose. I mean, this is clear when you look at the situation that's happening, for example, in Kasavine. I'm not going to go into detail about that. But, when something like this, like the pandemic happens, it starts to, highlight all the major flaws with direct provision. Now, that being said, hopefully, we can start to see the system change. We can start to see the politicians considering moving away from direct provision to a more humane system, something where people are accommodated in the community, people are allowed to be a part of their communities, where people are allowed to live independently. Because, I mean, that's beneficial not only to people who are seeking protection themselves, but to the communities. What we want to see is this whole profit model, being totally abolished. We want to see a system of accommodating international protection applicants that's informed by, say, vulnerability assessments, which is currently not being done. And this has proved itself so much now, especially when people when they were trying to identify the most vulnerable in the system when the pandemic started to really manifest. So hopefully we see the system being done away with. There is hope there. I mean, the campaign is stronger and louder now. And I think the public are more informed and they are more aware of why we have been saying that the system is not fit for purpose.
Thank you, Donna. Can you tell people a little bit about Afri, the organization that you're involved with, and perhaps maybe what people could do to support Afri, or MASI, sorry, that is Movement of Asylum Seekers in Ireland?
Yeah, well, there's many different ways that people can get involved with MASI. Mostly it would be to talk to your politicians. Ask them what they are doing about direct provision. Ask them what their views are on direct provision. It's I guess it's also important getting involved in the direct provision centers or the emergency accommodation centers as well, to hear the individual stories of people seeking asylum, to understand that people come to Ireland for protection. There's many reasons why people are forced to leave, their countries of origin. In as much as we saw during the time of the famine. I mean, we've heard stories. I mean, about the history of the famine, and I'm still learning myself. But it's something that I think every international protection applicant can relate to or can understand, because one way or another they have been forced to leave their homes. So it's I guess it's understanding and learning a bit more about those individual stories, and to be able to advocate on people's behalf, people who feel like they might not have the voice or they might not have the authority to do so, but to I guess question the government, question the people who are in positions of power, to say why is a system like direct provision still continuing 20 years on? Why are fully grown men and women being infantilized? It makes no sense whatsoever on a human level or on a economic or financial level. So I guess getting involved in that way, talking to your politicians and campaigning for the end of the direct provision system completely.
Donna, when you hear some of this discussion tonight and some of the reflection on Irish history, and particularly our history of emigration, which really is very recent as well. People, and I'm speaking here from County Clare, which is a history that any really west of Ireland county has a huge history of emigration. Do you see the parallels between Irish history and what's going on in so many other countries today? And what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I do, Rory, and I guess it's heartbreaking to think that we're still faced with situations like that. Like in 2020, I was looking even at the response to the whole COVID-19 situation, where the world is really standing up and reaching out to help one country or another, and it got me thinking, like, if we are able to do that, why are we not able to do that with all the other injustices that are going on in the world? Why is the children and people dying of hunger in Yemen, for example? Why is hospitals and children being killed in places like Afghanistan? If we are able to come together as different nations to fight the pandemic, why can we not fight the rest of the injustices that are happening in the world? But I mean, with every time I go to the famine walks, I mean, even today, I reflect and I look back and I think at all the journeys that are being made by people on a daily basis, even during this pandemic. And it's unfortunate that some of them are not even in a position to be able to flee right now or to seek safety. But people are still forced to leave their homes, to seek refuge, to seek safety from places where they are. So, like I said before, it's something that I guess every person seeking asylum can relate to in terms of the Irish history of why people had to make those journeys for survival. It's the same thing that we see still going on in the world today, and you somehow stop and question, why are we still allowing that to go on? Why is that still happening? There clearly has to be a point where we realize that this is not right. It has to stop. But yeah, I guess that's my thoughts on it right now. It's a lot of emotions, just because of looking at the response, because of the pandemic, because it affects everyone. Everyone is pulling together. So we should work towards focusing on those other issues that do not affect everyone else, because it's just unjust for us to just turn away and say, oh, because it doesn't impact us or it doesn't affect us, we're not going to, do anything about it.
Yeah, it's when you say we're all pulling together at the moment, I'm very conscious that even in Clare, there's 3 direct provision centres in County Clare. Well, you could say there's 4 because there's different types now. There's emergency,
right,
and then the other versions. But like people in direct provision are obviously from all over the world right now, but are particularly marginalised and vulnerable, especially so during COVID-19.
Yeah, very, very true.
So Donna, we're going to wrap up now, but I'm kind of want to ask you before we go, when you think of little Frederick and his life in Ireland as a little Irish man, what kind of Ireland would you like for Frederick, or what kind of world would you like?
That's that's an interesting question. Well, I guess I'd like to see a world where geez, I'm not even sure how to explain it, where the society is more fair, it's more inclusive, where there's no discrimination or racism because that's I know that those are some of the challenges that he is going to have to face and have to overcome, and that really scares me, especially like when you say it right now that as a young Irishman, how will he be able to relate to that? Will he be accepted as that? So I guess my hopes would be a society that's more welcoming, that's more inclusive, a government that does not discriminate people because of reasons of why they came into the country, possibly a government that does not segregate or seclude people, but one where everyone is able to live together, share culture, share history, and I guess just build a better world for all.
Here, Donna. I see Donald O'Kelly saying Donna and Clare O'Grady Walshe for rotating Taoiseach. So you've got some votes in Donald O'Kelly. You're a very good campaign manager,
right.
I think. Yeah.
Hired.
Yeah, Donald, you're hired. What's the pay like, Donna? We can do a crowdfunder, but speaking on the topic of funding, I'm gonna do a little appeal for donations and funds for both Afri and MASI, for people to take whatever goodwill, good vibes, energy, enthusiasm, inspiration, support you get tonight, and to actually catalyze that and bring it forward into, you're allowed to take Sunday off still, but on Monday morning, get on it, get the donations, get behind MASI, get behind Afri and groups like Trócaire, Concern, and many of the others that are working around issues like direct vision and Palestine and many other causes around the world. So Donna, thank you so much. Lots of love to Frederick. He's got a big Afri family now.
I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah, so we look forward to seeing him on the Famine Walk at some point. I think he's going to be famous. He'll be famous Famine Walker at this point. So.
That'll be fantastic. Thanks, Rory, and thank you for Afri. I mean, it's always been great for the last. I think I've been to the walks for the last 3 years, and fortunately, last year we got to go with a group of century runners, and that was very special. I remember everyone coming away from it feeling, very renewed, and having just reflected on everything. It's you can't even begin to explain what the experience is like. So a very big thank you to Afri for continuing on with that event and, all the other work that they do as well.
Thank you. Thanks, Donna.
Thanks.
So folks, running way over time, it's my Achilles heel. So many great folk we've been hearing from tonight. We're shortly going to hear from Gráinne Malone. Thanks for staying with us. The numbers have held up in the hundreds across YouTube, Facebook, Periscope. And so thanks for staying with us tonight. We will try and keep the show on the road. We did have messages of support from Caoimhe de Barra and from Michael Durley of Caoimhe from Trócaire, the Executive Director, and Michael Durley of Concern. I had a bit of an audio problem playing Caoimhe's message earlier, so I'm actually going to give it another go. What I would ask is for your support, that when you see the message and if you hear that the audio is not sufficiently working or it's not working well, can you just let me know in the comments, and that would be much appreciated. I think it's just really I know it's important to Joe and everyone at Afri that we hear from Caoimhe, and I know that Afri are very grateful for the support of Trócaire. So just 1 second here, folks. Thank you.
This is Caoimhe de Barra from Trócaire. Trócaire is delighted to support Afri's virtual way to exercise our common human spirit, our love for humanity, to reflect.
Okay, folks, no sound. Oh dear. Look, I tried my best. Some technical feats are beyond me, so apologies. It's quite difficult beaming in and out all the different guests, and also having some kind of video content and stuff. So appreciate your patience. Apologies for the glitch there. Thanks for staying with us. We will be posting Quiva's message straight after this feed, straight after the live stream, and we will also be posting Michael Durley's message, because I know they're very important to Afri to celebrate and give thanks for the support. I know it's an important relationship. So folks, without further ado, one of our final guests, waiting patiently in the green room, or the backstage, as we say, is Gráinne Malone in Offaly. How are you, Gráinne?
Hi, I'm good. How are you, Rory?
Great. I love your backdrop.
Thank you. It's a bit makeshift, but...
So, Gráinne, I think you're our youngest contributor tonight. Not that I want to single you out for age or anything, but you first came to Afri when you were even younger. I think 12 or 13, from what I hear.
Yeah. I think it really kind of started when I was still in a stroller, and my parents brought me on my first famine walk. And then Afri's Féile Bríde events have been on our annual calendar each year. Yeah. And I'm excited now, since their last event, I've been in contact with their incredible team, and really I'm just starting my journey with them, so I'm excited.
So, Gráinne, can you tell me what was it that first, you're about 17 now, is that
17,
right?
yes.
You're still at school?
Yes.
Yeah, and you've been very involved. You've been very involved in the climate movement. What was your first experience of personally taking some action? What was it that inspired that or led to that? And what was the experience like for you?
Mm-hmm. So in 2019, I went on a French exchange. And while I was there, I got the incredible opportunity to join thousands of my peers and partake in a march for the climate. And it was powerful. So since then, when I came home, climate change has really kind of been one of the things that I've tried to kind of pressure my life more forward. And so since then, I've taken part really actively in our green schools. And we actually had a conference last year about education, because it's really important for people to kind of know what is happening. So from the back of those events, I was actually elected as one of Offaly's candidates to be part of the Youth Assembly. And that was an incredible opportunity. It was the very first youth-led climate assembly in the world, which was exciting. But on the day, it was the 15th of November, and there was 157 delegates chosen from across Ireland, varying in age, and we took to the Dáil, and there we sat in the seats of our adults, and we made decisions that are impacting our future. So we were split into 5 groups. There was power, economics, food and farming, environment, and education. And on the day, each group came up with 2 actions, 2 proposals that culminated to 10 actions that we presented to the government to decide and take action on. And I was part of the education group, and it was really exciting because I believe education is the first step forward for people to know what's happening and know what they can do about it. So the 10 proposals were exciting because they were actions from young people who see that something is happening to their future, but see that their future is threatened, and who have decided to take action on that. So that was an incredible day. And feedback-wise, we understand that the motions have been brought to the government and discussed, but we hadn't received any action or any feedback from there.
And so, Gráinne, like the climate movement, particularly the youth-led climate movement, it's perhaps become one of the greatest movements in the history of humanity. And then it feels like COVID-19 and everything that's been happening in the last 2 or 3 months has, I mean, I'm certainly not hearing much about climate change. I am hearing a bit about ecosystems restoration and clearer skies and oceans, and I think that's to be celebrated. But do you feel that we're perhaps losing some momentum? Is there a risk there?
Yeah, as Claire mentioned earlier, I think it is depressing that it has taken a pandemic for us to realize the extent of the damage that we're causing on our Earth. But it is essentially incredibly important to keep up the pressure after this pandemic that was there beforehand from all the youth voices, to keep up that pressure and to ensure that it grows stronger and that it doesn't fade out.
Thanks, Gráinne. Where do you take your own inspiration in terms of keeping you going and keeping you active?
I think definitely my parents have been a big influence on my life, just from a young age, pointing out the injustices in the world and challenging me and encouraging me to question what's happening around me. But the huge movement of voices from young people has really been inspiring, and especially since the Dáil, meeting so many incredible people close to my age and younger than me that realize what's happening in the world and that are taking action for their future and for the generations that are coming after us.
Thanks, Gráinne. How do you think movements, whether it be climate movements, human rights movements, direct provision, how do you feel that we can get more young people engaged or mobilized? It's not that they're not engaged, but sometimes I feel like you don't see enough young people around the table when decisions are getting made or when events are happening and so on. And probably we should next year have more young people and almost have a youth famine walk, if you like. But what do you think are some of the important ingredients in terms of engaging young people?
Well, I think it's important, like what Donna just mentioned, having people understand that change is possible and even the smallest change is possible. Because I think I really realized that after coming back from France and just realizing there are things I can do in my daily life that are going to make a difference. But realizing that change can happen in our daily lives, but also realizing that climate effects, even if we don't see them daily, that they're happening and that they're affecting other people around the globe. But for young people, I think it is important that we find courage from people who have spoken today to get involved in events and also for organizations to extend to have us be part of the conversation.
Thanks so much, Gráinne. It's been an absolute pleasure having you join us tonight. Seeing lots of people enjoying hearing you speak, and we hope to hear you lots more on the national stage. Certainly we need young people, and we need particularly, as people have said already, more female leadership in the country. So hopefully you've got a great long journey ahead of you, and we look forward to seeing you on the Famine Walk.
Yes, I can't wait.
So thanks so much, Gráinne. Lots of love, and we'll see you soon.
Thanks, Ruairí. Thanks everyone for listening in.
Okay, folks, we're coming towards a conclusion here. I want to try one more thing. I appreciate your patience with my technical glitches here. I'm going to play a short message from Michael Durley. I'll need to know pretty quickly if the sound isn't working again. And as I said, I really appreciate your patience on this. We will be finishing up very soon. So thanks for staying with us.
Good evening, Joe. Good evening, Ruairí, and all the Afri family taking part here this evening. I want to begin by thanking you for allowing Concern the opportunity to express our support for this Famine Walk Forum. I think what I always love about an Afri event, whether it's Féile Bríde, whether it's the Hedge School, or whether it's the annual Famine Walk, is the way that it brings music and poetry, history and spirituality, experience and intellect to the critical global issues of our day. And in a way that connects us not only to the issues, but with one another as well. I think these events are reminders too that we don't forget, and that today at this Famine Walk, we honor the memory of those who suffered and died in our own famine by striving to end famine, hunger, and injustice everywhere in our world today. In a worrying report last week, as if we need another more reasons to worry, the World Food Programme warned us that the coronavirus crisis will push more than 250 million people to the brink of starvation this year, unless swift action is taken to provide food and humanitarian relief to the most at-risk regions. Meanwhile, in Kenya and in 10 other countries in East Africa, swarms of locusts have been decimating crops since last December. A swarm covering just 1 square kilometre can eat as much as 35,000 people in a single day. So the challenges are great. And as we here in Ireland begin to emerge tentatively from our lockdown, I think so many of us are asking, how do we not return to the old normal? How can we push the reset button on so much of the old world of 12 weeks ago that led to so much waste and unfairness and inequality in our world? And I think it's at forums like this evening, that we will begin to find the answers. So thank you again, Joe. Thank you, Afri. Carry on your great work. And to everyone, enjoy the evening.
So it looks like that finally did work, and I've somehow maybe even redeemed myself in terms of my technical competency. So folks, we are going to be finishing up, and I do want to do justice to everybody that was involved tonight, and thank you all for being part of it. But one of the people that we did want to celebrate is Caoimhe de Barra, who is the Chief Executive of Trócaire. And Ireland has such a great tradition of development education and humanitarian work at home and abroad. And Trócaire, I'm actually involved with Trócaire myself on one of the subcommittees of the board. But Trócaire concerned goal, there are so many organizations operating at the national and the global level, and I think they've never been more important. So I'm going to share Caoimhe's message. It's only about 60 seconds or so here. So bear with me for 1 second. Thank you very much, folks.
This is Caoimhe de Barra from Trócaire. Trócaire is delighted to support Afri's virtual Famine Walk this year. Trócaire and Afri share a common set of values and beliefs. Belief in a just world, belief in peace and in human rights. Afri's Famine Walk is an expression of compassion and human rights and memory. Every year, Afri undertake this walk and bring our memory back to the time when the Choctaw Indian nation provided a donation to help people in Ireland who were suffering from Ungurtamur, the Great Famine, at that time. This solidarity resonates strongly in our memory and connects us very much to the present day, where COVID-19 is creating untold misery and harm in many parts of the world. Hunger is on the increase. Participating in the virtual Famine Walk this year is a fantastic way to show solidarity with people in other parts of the world who are affected by COVID-19. It's a great way to exercise our common human spirit, our love for humanity. Through reflection, analysis, and action, Afri is on a path to creating a better world, and Trócaire is very proud to be a partner with Afri in this endeavour. Thank you.
So, folks, I'm going to need a drink or a lie down or something after this, because I'm whizzing between all sorts of different buttons and gadgets and screens, and thankfully it's mostly worked without too much glitch, and it's been wonderful to connect with you all tonight. We're going to be finishing up with a wonderful song by a huge friend of Afri. He's been involved with Afri for several years now, Whelan, who's accompanied by Paul O'Toole. Raj has a new album out. He goes under the name The Raj Light. He is the Art of the Peaceful Revolution.org, and we're going to be playing his music to sing us out tonight. And look at it, it's lovely to see the messages still coming in. Thanks for all the good vibes and support, folks. I can't believe we've been going just over the 2-hour mark. It's amazing. I'd like to, oh, there's somebody, a good woman, Roisin, off to donate to Afri tonight, afri.ie. Also, you could donate, you could organize some sort of like 5K fundraiser or something like that. Obviously the money's important, but we will, I think it's important to say the intention is very much there to do the Famine Walk at some point this year. And so Joe Murray will not rest until that Famine Walk is walked, and that he gets to see all of you, and hopefully we'll get to connect again in person soon. So in the meantime, let's keep all that spirit going online and connecting with each other and reaching out and looking after those that are more vulnerable, have less opportunity, less platform, particularly the likes of people in direct provision, people experiencing homelessness, or particularly our older community that might be feeling particularly isolated. And technology can play a role in that, but we can also, you know, talk to each other from a distance or with some volume. And I know that the people around here in Ennistimon and Clare have been particularly huge on the community spirit. So it's great to see you all coming in from all around the world. And there's Mairead Garvey, a great Clare woman, tuning in, and Jennifer and Limerick and John. So folks, I'm getting emotional now because I don't want to sign off. This happened to me the last time when I did my book launch. And, you know, it's just great to feel that experience. So there's a message from Quiva. Thanks, Quiva and Eleanor. Thanks for all the good vibes, everyone. So, folks, I'm going to hand it over to Raj for a tune here. So here we go. Another little technical moment here. Actually, Joe Murray's been hanging in the background. Joe, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Sorry.
Yeah. There's no. Yeah. Do you want to say any parting words?
Well,
Mary Lou, come in, Mary Lou.
People want to go about their business now, but it's been an amazing evening, extraordinary. I think what's really different is that when we walk, it's fantastic, but we often don't get to hear the incredible, exceptional people that we've brought to speak. But tonight we're able to sit down and listen and learn, and I've just found the whole thing inspirational. And then the messages that are coming in from all over the world has been extraordinary as well. So it's been fantastic. As you say, Rory, we'll try to do the actual walk before the end of the year, maybe September if that's possible. We'll try our best to do it. And if not, we guarantee we'll be back next year. I'd like to thank everyone involved, especially Rory, for hosting a very difficult event to host. That was really fantastic. But all the Afri board, the Afri team, the small Afri team, which is... well, Larissa, myself, and Raj, and but especially Larissa. Larissa wasn't seen or heard of tonight, but she does incredible work. She's the engine of the organisation, and I really want to put it on the record that we could do nothing without Larissa. So thank you to you and and the board and everyone else. And really, we're going to finish with Raj, who has, as Rory said, has made an amazing contribution to Afri. If you look at our website, you'll see all the films that he has made, and each one is worth a look, including that short film we had at the start, which you might look at again over the weekend just to mark the Famine Walk weekend. So, Gormagad, Ruairí.
I muted myself. I think we all agree that Joe Murray is an incredible human being and deserves to be celebrated. He has walked the walk and talked the talk for several decades now, and he's the driving force behind it. Alongside Larissa, the Afri board, people like Irish Aid, Trócaire Concern, other people, all the donors, the patrons, the advisors. I see Rita Minahan there in Kildare has been tuned in, another great Afri person. So many messages. I actually can't get covering them all, so it's fantastic to see them all. And as I said, I'm struggling now to get myself off the screen. I've no one here to boot me, although my beautiful wife Susan is around. I need someone to boot me off the screen. So I'm going to try and hand it over to Raj Whelan and Paul O'Toole. So just bear with me for a couple of seconds. Actually, before you go, one thing we need is feedback. If you could feedback any information, what you thought of tonight, into the comments, email admin@afri.ie. That would be hugely appreciated as well. And it actually helps Afri to understand how best they can do their work into the future in this regard. So over to Raj, and 1 second, we're going to count it down. I'm technically 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Okay. I wish you would stand up. Our power is so sure is hard to find someone true these days. I know my mind leaves this body for something in another soul. My heart lies with broken and take solace from the light you want to place this in you. So I wish you would stand up with me. Our power is solidarity.
Come on, Joe. You any dancing in you?
I hope I'm not seen on screen anymore.
Stand together for the ones who can't stand up. In the world which you can, they all think they don't know you at all. Know you so much better than they. If I could only show you how much you're made. wish you would stand up with me. Our power is solidarity. I wish you would stand up with us. Stand together for the ones who can't stand up. I wish you would stand up with me. Our power is solidarity. I wish you would stand up with us. Stand together for the ones who can't stand up. Yearning for someone's truth. Can they feel my secret? Our future's born kind of in my heart. It's you in my heart. It's you.
The Afri anthem.
That's a wrap, folks. We're posting that video of Raj, and I'll post that video of Raj and Paul on the Afri Facebook page. And so check out the music for Raj, Whelan, and peacefulrevolution.org. And that's a wrap. EY, mind yourselves. Lots of love. Thanks for tuning in.